So what happens is those lining cells are under the influence of estrogen and progesterone, two hormones that our ovaries are making the whole time, from when we start our periods until we go into menopause. And every time we have a period and we make a large amount of estrogen and progesterone, we stimulate those duct lining cells to grow and turn over and make new cells. And any time you force a cell to reproduce itself, little genetic accidents can happen. And you start to accumulate genetic mutations in those cells. So because you have a period and the hormones drop down, things settle down, but if you have a genetic mutation and your body doesn't have time to clear it out and recognize it, and then another period comes along and you make this huge amount of estrogen and progesterone, you may start to stimulate that mutated cell to grow and make more mutated cells.
Wow.
So we think that it probably takes 5 or 6 critical mutations in specific genes to go from a normal duct lining cell to a breast cancer cell.
Wow.
And that's why it takes decades, usually, to develop these cancers.
Right, because it evolves in stages.
Right, but it's mostly related to, the risk is mostly related to how many times your ovaries pumped out those huge amount of hormones and nothing interrupted that. So we talk about hormone replacement therapy, but that's just sort of adding hormone on the back end of a whole lot of damage that was already done.
Wow. Now, here's a question I would also like to ask you, which probably a lot of our listeners probably won't ask, probably don't know, but are men as well prone to breast cancer?
Yep.
So there is definitely male breast cancer, but it's like 1/100th of the number of cases that women get. And men who are susceptible to breast cancer have one of two issues going on. One is that they're one of the carriers of the BRCA1 or BRCA2 genes.
Okay.
So that, when we talk about genetic breast cancer and people being carriers of the gene, men can carry that gene as well.
Wow.
And not have it, but pass it on to their daughter.
Right.
Okay.
But they could also get a breast cancer because of it.
Okay.
And the other thing is any kind of condition that a man has that makes them overproduce estrogen. So there's some genetic syndromes. There are some parasites that can infect the liver that happens in Egyptian men, making their liver not break down estrogen, so it accumulates. They have a higher risk of breast cancer. But it's a pretty uncommon phenomenon, and it's so uncommon that's why we don't do screening.
Okay.
Is this and you're referring to hormones in the foods? Food?
No,
you
hormones
know
in the
what?
body.
There are hormones in the foods. It's like taking an eyedropper and putting it in the ocean.
Okay.
The amount of hormones that we make as women is so enormous compared to anything that you can get in foods. I just don't think we need to worry about that exposure because we make so much hormone every month so that we can get pregnant every month. And that is an enormous hormone burden, which is good, but it's something that we carry. And one of the reasons why breast cancer risk continued to climb is because women through the last 10, 20, 30 years have started to change their reproductive habits. So they start their periods younger. So I'm 55, and I started my periods at 13. But our daughters right now are starting at 10 and a half.
Yes,
That's
I
scary.
started at 10.
I have a daughter.
Yeah, and so now menopause used to be late 40s. Now it's pushing out to like 55.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So what we just did is expanded by another 8-9 years our breast exposure to our hormones, estrogen and progesterone.
Wow.
Wow.
And we are having less children, and children will interrupt that cycle. And we don't breastfeed as much. And if you breastfeed really well, you don't have periods, so the ovaries shut down. So everything we used to do, have lots of children, have them really young, breastfeed them for a really long period of time, those were all protected. And we've lost that as a society, and that's why breast cancer risks are increasing.
Wow.
Incredible.
Dr. Russell, I have a caller on the line that has a question for you. Jackie, welcome to the show.
I was calling because I was about maybe 3 years ago, I was concerned because I had found a lump, and actually I went to a regular female screening, for tests.
Right.
And so the nurse had found it, and I went in, and they had told me that I was really young. I was, 25, 26 at the time, and they had not done a mammogram. They actually did an ultrasound.
Right.
Because I'm not sure why, actually.
Okay.
I guess because I don't have any children, and they weren't trying to expose me to something. And they didn't think it was an issue as far as cancer goes, but I had a second opinion, and also they told me that it was nothing. And but it actually does give me pain, like every menstrual cycle, it will hurt.
Okay.
It's really it's kind of a really hard bump, and their explanation for it was, every time we go through our cycle, I forget the complete name, but it's just talking about how it would change every month, and I might see a lump here and there, and they would actually go away and come back.
Right.
Every cycle, but this one particular bump has been in the same place, and it hurts, and they're just telling me that it's nothing. So I'm just wondering if it's a mammogram that I should get and, be a little more safe, or is the ultrasound okay?
So I have no idea because I don't really know your case, so I don't really want to give you medical advice. But at your age, the most common thing that happens is a cyst. And cysts can feel very firm, and they can be very tender. And it's fluid just building up, and then it recedes each month as your hormones sort of drive production of the fluid in this cyst, which then goes down. And the second most common diagnosis is a fibroadenoma. Okay. And that's a solid tumor, but that's also benign. But
actually,
if you're going to live through pain, go ahead. What did they say?
Nikia has a question. Go ahead.
Oh, no, it's not really a question. It's actually a statement/comment. Same thing happened to me. When I went to the doctor, they told me, "Oh, you're so young," and I insisted. I actually had to insist, and I did have an ultrasound at first,
right.
And it went from an ultrasound to a mammogram ultrasound, mammogram to biopsy.
Right.
Mm-hmm. So my advice
probably showed something suspicious, and my guess is you can see an ultrasound in something that's benign in the breast and go, oh my gosh, that has all the characteristics of this thing which we know is benign.
Right, but I also had to
and go, my gosh, that is probably cancer. There's something wrong there.
Well, I also had the same issue as the caller.
Yeah.
So I also had the problem of having cysts, and people kept telling me it was cyst,
Right.
And turns out it ended up being cancer. So my advice to you, caller, is doctors, yes, they're doctors, but you also know yourself. And my thing is, whenever I talk to people about it, I tell them, be persistent. If you have to get a third opinion, go get a third opinion. Because, it is a practice, and everybody's just doing what they can, and they're going off the knowledge that they have recently. So being that cancer is starting to basically take over again, mm-hmm.
I
think it's important for you to, if it's still bothering you, go do something about it.
Right.
Go.
So I think the pain happening every cycle is enough for me to say, I don't want to have pain every cycle, so why don't you do something with this breast that makes me not have pain every cycle?
Exactly.
If that means removing my lump, I'm not doing it because I'm worried about cancer. I don't want to have pain every month. That's a reason to maybe have it removed. Then you could get rid of the pain and then get rid of your fear that this could be a cancer.
Right.
Okay. We have a poem by our lovely Miss Tina Davina.
Yes.
Go ahead, girl. Break
It's
it.
kind of a tough subject to write on.
Yes, it is, but I know you can come with it. Go ahead, girl.
We were inseparable, like Siamese twins, yet not identical. Though the difference is subtle, they made me whole. Together we were supposed to grow old, the yin to my yang, the proof of dame, proclaiming me woman. My B-cup never runneth over, and often I complain. Still they had a name, mine. Feeling defined, designed in an hourglass shape, perfectly proportioned, dreading the distortion, aborting the idea and holding on to hope, coping with the notion. Who am I without both? I could lose the left and maybe left with the right. wondering why. Imagine shopping at Victoria's looking for the secret bra, covered in lace and silk. It's the source of my milk that would feed my seed. Will I become half of me? I took them for granted. Never imagined this could happen. Never thought I'd be the one to feel the lump.
Beautiful poem. Great. Thank you. Tina, talking about the twins. We are going to go on a break.
And Miss Portia Coleman has just walked in. So
Thank you for joining us, Miss Thing.
She has. Oh. And when we come back, we're talking about Love Your Boobs, the Breast Care Awareness Show. Give us a call, 1-877-2-106-106.